Awesome. We are live. Perfect. Hello, everyone. Today, it's a gloomy Wednesday evening in Mumbai, but whoever has joined in, I'm very glad that you guys are here because today we have Professor Vinay Kumar from SRM University, and we are here to cover up certain topics regarding things you should keep in mind before joining a B school. Because we get to interact with a lot of students whenever we go and visit campuses, and you guys ask us a lot of questions which we think we are not qualified answering, so we get somebody who is qualified enough to answer. Dr. Vinay, welcome to Inside IM. Welcome to this webinar.
Thank you. Thanks.
How's the weather in Chennai at the moment?
I don't know. Chennai weather keeps changing quite dramatically, and sometimes it rains, sometimes it's hot. Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so as I initially hinted, we'll keep the topic largely focused on the things students should keep in mind before joining a B school. And we have certain questions that is divided amongst career objectives and B school fits. And then we have probably accreditations, ranking, and global recognition, if that is something that they need to know. And then curriculum design, industry relevance, and a lot of other things that we'll slowly talk as our conversation progresses. But before that, I would want you to introduce yourself to our audience so that they have some context to who Dr. Vinay is and what do you do.
So, hello, all participants and prospective managers. Okay. I'm Vinay, and I'm an academician. I've been in this business for more than three decades or so. And largely, I was working with, I am Lucknow as a professor before I was, here as Pro-Vice-Chancellor at SRM IST. I was teaching finance, and uh, I always thought that maybe I could do more by taking a sort of an administrative academic role to change the future managers or future leaders. So I think this opportunity gave me that space, and I'm able to contribute to SRMIST in a certain way. And yeah, I mean, I'm also my interest is in curriculum, and
Mhm.
how do you sort of make sure that the MBAs have a certain uh, future skill set and things like that, because that's the debate all over the world. So I mean, that's something which excites me, and maybe that's why Inside I'm wanted me to be here.
Lovely. Okay. So as Dr. Vinay, as I initially hinted, that we get people who are qualified enough to talk about a lot of queries B school students have. And you are at a very interesting position where you have that vantage point. 3 decades is a huge experience, a huge chunk of experience in various different domains. And I like how you initially started this conversation by addressing our audience as future leaders. And leaders are known and also rewarded for their clarity. So, my first question to you would be, in your experience, how important do you think clarity is for MBA aspirants about what they want to get out of a B school? Because a lot of them, they also do it because they are clouded in their mind and they think this can be a good place because you meet your contemporaries from different walks of life, and then they meet them, they do different things, and then they eventually gain clarity. So is that okay, or they should have some clarity? If yes, then what should that be before getting into any B school?
So, I mean, before I take up your question, I actually, here at SRM, I head three divisions. There's Faculty of Science and Humanities, Faculty of Law, and Faculty of Management. So there are multiple departments and over 10,000 students in all of these three schools. But yeah, one of the key things that you always face when it comes to understanding students' ability to actually visualize what kind of careers they want, that's a very hazy type of a question. And so basically, you know, uh, if you're an undergrad student, if you really don't have anything to chase, that is okay, in the sense that, if you take up, I'll give you an example. Probably if you take up an accounting course, and if you are unsure whether you want to actually become an accountant or not, that's okay. But when you get into an MBA program, a certain level of clarity is completely desirable, because MBA, in fact, if the moment you get into an MBA program, your time start ticking, because you've got to get placed at the end of the cycle, and there's no choice. So in other words, I think a certain level of clarity is needed before even you get into this game. And the moment you get into this game, your clock start ticking. And that's how you need to actually sort of articulate what is the type of career that you want to get into, and where, which company, what are I mean, please answer some of these questions. And it is not very difficult to actually ponder upon them. Even, I mean, after getting into the program also, you can contemplate, but don't get too bogged down into everything other than these questions, because MBA also gives you opportunity to even get digressed into 100 different things, because 100 different things are going to happen in a business school, and you can easily get drifted into things. But if you lose your vision, if you lose your objective, it is very difficult for you to actually sort of uh, get hold of that by the time you get into the placement season. So that's why it's very important to have a certain level of clarity. When you get After you have that clarity, you can always pivot. You can always, if it's banking and finance, okay, is it retail banking, is it corporate banking, is it, so some of these things you can easily sort of navigate. Is it front end customer relations? Those are all things that you can work it out. But you need to have broadly a certain type of a vision. Otherwise, it's going to be too confusing. You're applying to every job. So it's like that. So clarity is very, very important.
That's a very good point, because um, definitely the curriculum is also designed in a way where you are expected to do many things, and only if you know, at least have certain idea of what you really want out of this, or where you want to orient your career, probably, then you can probably pick in the right pieces that fit your bigger picture, and then you can eventually leverage it to a better things, the placement season and all that you spoke about. Dr. Vinay, so this brings me to my next question. So very curious, because people I know, and I've spoken to many MBA aspirants, and they do MBA for career switches also. So probably they are into a particular set domain for X number of years. Then they want to, probably they're doing something very technical, and then they want some management flavor through education, and then they want to club both of these and then eventually get somewhere else. Um, so if somebody is looking for a career switch, what should they look at when it comes to program structure? Should they look for specific? I know it's a general question, but do you have any framework of how differently do you look at it, and potentially what SRM also helps accommodating all this and to support this career transition that people want to do?
So fundamentally, if it is for career switch, depends on the number of years that you work. For instance, let's say if you've worked for about 10 years and then you're now doing an MBA, okay? So generally, there are alternatives to get into a sort of 1 year MBA versus 2 year MBA. There are choices again. And mostly, if you want to transition, there are consulting and
Mm-hmm.
the allied fields that
Yes.
are available for getting into profiles like that. But let's say if you are a 3 year experience, or 3 to 5 years type of an experienced person, MBA is actually going to give you the leverage of actually progressing in your career in a significant way. So in other words, let's say you are in IT services and you work for 3 years, and after you have done your MBA, immediately you will get into managerial positions. In other words, you start getting directly, you start dealing with the clients, and you start analyzing the needs of the customers and fixing customers' problems with your IT team, and things like that. So in other words, it depends on the type of experience that you have first. Second is, see, to be a manager, that's the fundamental thing. Ultimately, if you are a professional, you don't have a perspective about the P&L. You don't really look at the larger picture. But when you get into a managerial position, at whatever level that you are, there is a certain type of a P&L that you need to drive. So that is what, so in other words, it's as a manager, you need to really deal with a lot of ambiguities, a lot of dilemmas. Okay, and that's where you test it for decision making, you test it for your resilience, your ability to actually communicate and put together the team and make sure that the team sticks together. These are the things. And so therefore what happens is, essentially, if you have the aptitude to become the manager, okay, and achieve results for your company and for your corporation, I think that's what is the essential job all about. And everything other than that, all domain specific things are basically you're choosing the dilemmas that you want. In other words, if you want supply chain dilemmas, okay, you still have the larger picture, but you want supply chain as a sort of a unique problem set that you want to specialize in and things like that. But essentially, you are a manager. So tomorrow, if immediately you get into a supply chain type of a profile, eventually, maybe 10 years down the line, you may become a CEO, and then you're actually dealing with everything else. MBA prepares you for everything else also in a certain way. So the fundamental thing is whether you have that aptitude to be a manager, and then all the other questions follow.
That's very well put. This was very novel to me when I heard choosing your career dilemmas. That is something nobody has ever put it that way. That obviously you have to like choose different career dilemmas to kind of see if you are a good aptitude fit for that, if you aspire to become or get into that. Um, okay, so one more question. So whenever, if let's just say put myself in the shoes of an aspirant, and now there are a lot of new age B schools also coming in, and whenever I have to probably do any research of getting into a good B school, so my decision filters will definitely naturally gravitate towards some accreditations also, right? That you have NACC, NBA, AACSB, if I'm not wrong. So how important do you think are these accreditations ensuring quality, and how does this play out in SRM as well?
So basically, we are now an AACSB member. We are in this process for some time, and soon we're going to get into the accreditation. See, accreditation essentially is a sort of a differentiator to understand what type of course level rigor and what kind of practices that you have, which will make the program effective and things like that. That's the whole journey. And typically AACSB takes about 5 years for a school to actually get accredited, 5 to 6 years, sometimes 7 years too, because the process requires a lot of transformatory things within the school so that you align with certain quality standards. But ACSB essentially is used in different parts of the world for different purposes. For instance, in the US, AACSB is an important accreditation because that is how students basically differentiate a good school versus a bad school and things like that. There are other accreditations also. But in India, typically, students actually don't decide whether a school is AICSB or not, because it's still not a sort of a standard that everybody is looking forward and things like that. But even then, schools wanted this kind of a process, and there are some schools who signed up for this process because it's a rigorous process, and SRM is one of those schools. And we have aligned ourselves to a lot of these quality standards, and soon we're going to be AACSB accredited. Uh, One of the key things that one should understand is we already had some quality parameters. So for us to actually get into ASSB was not fundamentally, a big change or something like that. But in some areas, yeah, it was a big change. But to a great extent, we had, for instance, we already had something called, outcome-based education, and flexibility in education and things like that, the university level. And when we got into ASSB, actually we were quite comfortable in aligning ourselves with the whole process. But yeah, the university. So in other words, it's important, but there are established universities who already have a lot of these standards in a certain way, indirectly, put in place, and this that, and that's why they have already achieved a certain type of outcomes. SRM has a huge alumni network. In fact, in terms of the size of the university, we are about 100,000 students at the moment, and look at the type of alumni network that we would have had all over the world. I mean, over the last 40 years, we've created so many leaders all across all spectrums. And so, in other words, you have access to that kind of a network and things like that, So these things also matter. But yeah, a lot of Indian schools are trying to get into these international accreditation for the purpose of internationalization. So for us, AICSB is like a tool for making sure that we talk to other institutions at a equal footing in a certain way, and it is easier for us to internationalize our program. We can attract foreign students. Our students can go and sort of take credits in other schools and things like that. It's a better tool. In other words, so that's what is our objective, and we are in that. Game already.
So thank you so much for answering that, and really insightful answer. I'm sure this will really help students to understand what exactly are the things that they should look at, because these things get tossed around a lot, and many people might take the decision based on these things. But I really like how you emphasized on alumni network, because I've been to SRM. I've also interacted with a couple of students, and they were also very big on the alumni and the kind of support that they get from the alumni. And just wanted to understand the curriculum design. How frequently is the curriculum at SRM probably updated to align align yourself well with the industry, since AI and all these things are the talk of town, and what role do alumni also play in this?
So, curriculum uh, is like the crux of MBA education in a certain way. No two MBAs are same in a certain way, and uh, you know, actually MBA as a degree is not like MSc physics or something like that. There's no domain for MBA. MBA is like a collection of topics from various fields, various science, humanities, everything put together. So it's a multidisciplinary kind of a this thing to train managers to have a holistic perspective about corporations and how do you drive corporations in a certain way, what type of vision that you need to have, and what type of strategic planning that you need to have, and things like that. It's a collection of a lot of things, and that's how, in other words, MBA itself is an innovation, is a collection of things that actually became emerged as MBA education, in the first place. And MBA as a for a very long time became a sort of a templated course for some time. Everybody was every all the schools used to have a certain type of a structure and this that, but that got disrupted. Every financial crisis sort of disrupted these things, and especially in 2008 when there was a huge financial crisis, people started rethinking about MBA. And there are books people have written about books. How do you rethink about the MBA and the curriculum, things like that. So now a lot of people are innovating because they want to make sure that, hey, what is that right formula for making the best possible manager? How do you make the best possible manager? And what should be our formula? So everybody is actually working on that, and we are also working on that. So obviously, curriculum innovation has to be very agile. Okay, and even though we are a university, we have a huge eye on curriculum, and we try to basically revise it as soon as possible. We don't want to wait. And now the next revolution is supposed to be AI, and people really don't know how is it actually going to impact in a certain way. And some people say that there's going to be a huge transformation within 2 years, and there is some transformation already in the IT sector, and a lot of jobs have gone. And then as we speak, the transformation is happening. So we don't know, but uh, the an MBA curriculum should basically gear up to the shocks. Okay, and their skilling is something that should stay for life. Okay, irrespective. So one of the key things I was telling you, resilience, in the sense that how do you how do you persevere to do something, and how do you be resilient to shocks, because shocks are going to happen in business and life. So your curriculum should give you windows where you can actually sort of get a perspective and have some tools, so that you can actually bear the shock. So we don't know exactly how AI is going to sort of change everything, but we would want our managers to stay relevant. They will have the AI skills for using, but AI skills should not replace them. Okay, there should be some skills that AI is not learning, because the AI data sets do not have some of those data sets being trained. Those data sets are, we would like to keep them from AI engines and train our students so that AI never catches up. But AI is going to catch up. It is unreasonable to think that AI is never going to catch up. But you got to make sure that a certain level of skills, see, the decision making, and especially dealing with ambiguity and dealing with shocks and things like that, are going to be unique skill sets. AI may take a lot of time to get there, because the data sets may take time. I mean, unless you actually train them in some kind of a supervised learning and some kind of a learning methodology, it may take some time. So the curriculum has to take care of those things.
Awesome. All right. Very, very, very interesting. That brings me also, sir, to my follow-up question. So, since you have a huge pool of alumni, um, do they also students get to interact with them? Do they come for workshops? Can they directly speak to them if they're probably wanting to get in the same company if they've decided? So, how is the interaction with the alumni if I'm a student?
So the there's a huge alumni network, and we do organize a lot of regional alumni forums, networking opportunity. There's one annual fest, which is like a very huge thing, in the sense that the scale is too big to actually comprehend, because there'll be some 5,000, 6,000 alumni descending on the this thing. And our Audi is not enough, actually. We have an auditorium of 3,000 capacity, and usually we overrun the capacity and this, that. So we have multiple auditoriums where we actually host them and this, that. They spend the whole day with their families and this, that. It's a gala networking kind of this thing. But we have a sort of a policy where we actually sort of bring alumni in into our curriculum in the sense that we make sure that some of them are actually coming and teaching our students, sharing their experience and things like that, which is a continuous process. So at any given point in time, you will always find, a few alumni always hanging around, teaching in some or the other program. We have a huge, it's a multidisciplinary university. We have a medical school. You name it, you name the program, we have the program. So at any given point in time, you can always find some or the other alumni. And especially in the business school, we have a huge alumni base. Some of them are quite local who help us out in, various things, even sponsorships and things like that. So that interaction is uh, quite good, and you can always find space in this forum, especially in those events. And individual schools also have their own alumni sort of interaction, networking opportunities. A lot of opportunities exist.
Awesome. Um, a lot of students also. I'm bringing in these questions because this is what I get to hear all the time as well, and I've condensed. I'm trying to condense all the relevant questions that I keep hearing in this
Mhm.
conversation with you. So ROI is also a key concern for many students. Some of them they also take loans and probably they try to also look for their monetary uptake in their MBA journey. And I've personally seen, and whenever I speak to somebody who is 10 years in their career after MBA, they often tell us the long term thing that the first foot in the door matters, but probably not that much. You can eventually see it as a long term investment also. Um, but how do we address this to students who have this concern of getting all the ROI in probably a year or two?
See, I think since you are going to be a manager, thinking about ROI is a fair point. So it's quite fair. And I think you should have that perspective in your mind. And in fact, your overall MBA engagement should make sense from an ROI perspective. And whatever that you're investing, it should give you the type of result. But that's not possible. I connect this with the first question that you have. The first question is, uh, you need to answer some questions about how do you want to make this experience the best possible experience for you. Now, most often what happens is the students come into the program. The discovery itself is going to take a lot of time. And by the time you discover, yeah, X, Y, Z, these things, and, my elective basket, and when you actually decide all of these things, which is mostly, towards the second year, and when you do that, uh, by already you sort of get into the season, okay, and then you start applying to every job and this that, and the because there is no clarity in the way that you wanted to actually do the MBA, you don't have enough CV points. So in other words, let's say you started out with a certain proposition. In the first year also, you're collecting some CV points, and you have clarity about what type of elective basket that you're going to choose. And then it becomes easier for you to actually chase your ROI dream, because you will eventually have opportunities and you're able to take those opportunities. Okay. Now, when you don't have the clarity, what happens is the school is not going to solve you the ROI problem. It's like, essentially, you are completely independent. The program is facilitating your vision in a certain way, but ultimately, you are responsible for it. And if you take that responsibility early on, your ROI possibilities are easily achievable. if at all you are unable to take the responsibility and you are still actually in the contemplative mode, then what happens is you will get into some proposition, ROI proposition. It requires a little bit of correction. End of the day, please understand that a person who gets into the marketplace, okay, whether you have done MBA from X institution, Y institution, or any other institution. Let's say if you have, again, I'm telling you, when you take up a job, again, you got to make sure that that job makes sense for your CV. Okay, for in about 3 years' time, if it is making sense, you get the biggest possible jump, and the correction is possible. Okay. In other words, the envisioning is a very important thing. Whether you join the program or also after you get into the job, what type of contribution that you are going to make. Let's say if you in private sector, what happens is if you are a very enthusiastic person, you may get a promotion in 6 months. Okay. All it requires is you got to make sure that you put out the best possible performance. Okay. And it is possible, in 3 years' time, you are somewhere, and so the things that you were unable to discover, probably you will discover while you are working, and you can always make that correction. The game is not over. For managers, the game is never over. Okay. A manager is always in the game, is always trying to make sure that his decisions are going to converge. If there is no convergence, there's a backup plan. That's how it works.
If I were to be very honest, that one line is still echoing in my mind when you said the MBA program has to be a facilitator of your vision. That's how it pays long-term dividends, and this that encapsulates your entire answer perfectly. I really love that. Um, at till this point, since we are halfway through our conversation, I'm sure we have given students enough food for thought to think. Whoever is watching this webinar, um, and if they are more curious about SRM right now, and if you had to probably tell them the strengths of SRM and why should they consider this for their MBA journey, what would you tell them now? When we have their attention.
So I joined SRM about a year and a half now, and after I joined, uh, you know, we have a new dean. The dean had come from IIT Mumbai, and
Okay.
a lot of transformative things that we've done. We have built a Bloomberg lab, okay, real-time data sets from all over the world. We're training our students on financial technologies, but Bloomberg can be used in various other courses. So we're making sure that a lot of courses use Bloomberg data and things like that. We got into case teaching in a big way, and we're trying to make sure that Harvard cases and all worldwide cases come to the classroom in a vigorous way, and we're working on that. And we started actually, in the last 1 year, we were able to attract some very good faculty. We're continuously trying to attract the best possible faculty from all over the country. And we have a very good base of faculty members right now. Some of them are here for about 15 to 20 years, and some excellent faculty members we have. And that's how we've grown to such a large business school, and but we are continuously trying to transform all international accreditation. We're making sure that certain quality standards will never sort of compromise, and we've got into some of these things. And huge internationalization. We're working with some very prominent universities for student exchange, even faculty exchange, and things like that. As we speak, a lot of things are currently underway, and we're making sure that our students get the best possible experience when they get into the MBA program. And uh, as I told you, curriculum can't be a static thing. So curriculum debate is a continuous debate for us. We are trying to make sure that our managers are going to be unique leaders in the marketplace, and tomorrow's leaders who can actually stand the best possible, I mean, the all types of ambiguities or shocks and things like that. So we're trying to do that in a big way. And I think these are some of the things, but our dean is working on a lot of proposals and things like that. So it's a great place to be for students, and there is already a lot of experience, collective experience, and we are also transforming.
Beautiful. Sir, we had floated around a questionnaire before this webinar to get some questions from students beforehand also. So I've shortlisted a couple of them. So are you okay to pick those up? Should I
Yeah, sure.
ask you what I've received? Perfect. So first one is a little bigger one. The first question is, reaching at this stage of your life or career, how to decide while moving forward with pursuing an MBA course? How can you decide between university or the course when given an option? In this cutthroat market, which part is more important, the brand value or the course you get involved with? Is it the specialization in one or the generic course that you want to work out with your majors? So I think the largely the question is, I'm sure you understood, just to contextualize for our viewers, should they focus more emphasis on brand value of any particular B school or the specialization that they're getting into?
So basically, I wouldn't say that MBA doesn't have brand and things like that. Both are important. Certain level of branding is important. Also, the type of coursework that you do, that's also quite important. Brand gives you the first cut, this thing, in the sense that if you have a brand in your CV, what happens is the initial, people will recognize you initially. Okay, but what differentiates you is the conversation. Okay, when actually conversation happens, you need to have your basics strong. So that's where it's like brand is skin deep. Okay, how well you carry yourself is much more deeper. So in other words, there your curriculum rigor and things like that will make a huge sense, because end of the day, a manager is a person who is communicating all the time, right? So your brand is only to the extent of actually shaking hands. Thereafter, what takes you further is the type of grounding that you have in terms of your curriculum and the ecosystem that you came up from. Okay, the lived experience is going to make all the difference, and that's where I think uh, curriculum plays a huge role. Also, I think there was something about specialization. The basic this thing is, you need to see all managers. MBA is about managers. Whether you are a marketing person or a finance person, ultimately you are supposed to be managing the big picture over a certain period of time. I mean, in a certain way, we are actually preparing you to become a CEO, right? So the again, specialization perspective is like what is the thing that is sort of gives you the most uh, passion, or something that excites you immediately. That is your thing that you need to pursue. But eventually you got to deal with others also. Then you can't say, oh my god, finance I don't want because I always hated finance. If you say that, then it's going to be difficult because you can't graduate, in other words. So that's why it's a multidisciplinary course, and you should be open to everything in a certain way. But you can have a short-term perspective of HR or strategy or whatever, and ultimately you will deal with everything. Okay, and you can't shrug away anything, by the way.
Beautiful. Since we are talking about dealing with people at the end of the day, once you're doing an MBA, sorry, after you do an MBA, you're expected to deal with people. So our second question is it's very interesting. Our second question is, as someone who is an introvert by nature and feels socially anxious, what is your best advice for them, and how can they navigate this situation, the MBA situation, and make the best use of their MBA journey?
Okay. So I am an introvert actually. Basically, I I think that I'm an introvert, and based on the frameworks that we understand about introverts, I think I'm an introvert. So basically, I think if because since I'm an introvert, I can really answer it very well. uh, Introverts generally are very good communicators because they speak to the point. In other words, you will never have a sort of a flamboyancy in terms of communication because they're not trying to actually impress somebody. So the communication is very sharp and very to the point and this that and they are also quite focused in a certain way when it comes to achieving tasks and things like that. And their relationships, their professional frameworks are very well defined and things like that. So, uh, so whether you are an introvert or an extrovert, as far as the profession is concerned, I don't think it's not possible for you to pick up some things. And introversy, for instance, is not going to be an impediment to for you to become a manager. Definitely, it is not going to. Now, for instance, a manager is supposed to have a certain level of diplomatic conversational skills. Now, that you can pick up on the job. Okay. There are some people who have the gift of the gab in the sense that they very well they communicate, they mix with people quite easily, and they may have a certain advantage, but some of those things are completely workable for even introverts. Okay. And I have done that in a certain way, and I do that little in a conscious way. But if I'm able to train myself to actually sort of go out and reach out and things like that, it is possible for anybody. So it is not going to be an impediment at all.
I'm glad I asked you this question because you bring in that perspective where you yourself identify as an introvert, and the answer was also pretty practical. That they have their strengths, and then this may not necessarily hinder them for in order to perform better. Okay, my next question is, you can choose to skip this if it is too specific. If I have an academic score 666 and zero work experience, uh, can I apply to SRM?
Sorry, what is the score?
Yeah, 666 academic score and zero work experience.
We do have a lot of students with zero experience. I think you can apply.
Got it. Okay. Is it possible for scholarships at SRM?
I don't know what scholarships that we have, but we do have a lot of scholarships available for all streams, including MBA.
Got it.
So I think the admission team is more capable of addressing that. Please reach out to our admissions team. But there are scholarships.
For sure. Also, at the end of our discussion, we'll also put a CTA where we redirect our audience to the landing page of SRM. So I urge you, whoever asked this question, please do check that out as well and get in touch with the admission team. Okay, we have one last question, but I think this question is very general and you have already answered that. But I'll still ask you, um, what type of B school is the best to choose?
Uh, any B school that gives you the outcomes. Okay. But you should define the outcomes. And as I told you, the school can only manufacture that type of a vision that you have already envisioned. Okay.
Right, right. It should facilitate your vision. Perfect. Okay, sir, on an ending note, do you want to personally add anything? Is there something that I missed to ask you that you wanted to probably communicate to our audience?
See, the point is, there is, we have this dilemma that till now, people are saying, thinking about skill gap. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So, how do you bridge the skill gap and, and now we are entering into an age where you can actually churn out a website in 90 seconds. Okay. So, and probably 100 videos in 10 minutes. And so in other words, it's going to be a complex thing where skill is going to be a sort of a myth. Okay. So that's where I think managers have to come up with a skill set that is not so easily replicable, and that's where our curriculum comes into a picture, and we are working very hard to make sure that managing becomes relevant even in the future, and that is managing itself is a skill set. Okay. And the point is the management and manager, to be a manager is actually a sort of a thing which is fading even in the corporations, in the companies, because they get trained, but they become something else. Somewhere they lose that mojo in a certain way, and that's why they got to come back and get retrained and things like that, so and you should become a manager, and if you can become a manager, you'll always stay relevant, and that is what is our belief. And we endeavor to create managers who will become leaders, and that's what is our main concern.
Dr. Vinay, thank you so much for your time. Um, at the end of every episode, when we are shooting off camera, I just summarize whatever my current chain of thought is for our audience. So allow me to do that here as well. And please forgive me if I misquote you. You can pitch in and tell me if that's not okay. But what I realized from our conversation is what I really liked is how you have thought everything from first principles. You have from the very definition of an MBA education, from why is it necessary, from why do you need to get into one, from how you should be prepared, and what are some of the prerequisites that you should come with so that you can use this as an accelerator to your larger vision and what you want long term. These things were very very well put, and also the emphasis on selecting. How do you select a B school? That first be introspective, understand what you want, do the research, probably see past some accreditations that are they might not be very relevant to what you exactly need. So very heavy emphasis on curriculum, heavy emphasis on the kind of alumni network that you will be going to interact with, and the kind of contemporaries you can expect at your B school. So that is probably much more helpful if I want to make the most experience out of my journey. And it doesn't matter however you identify yourself, even if you're an introvert, you can still definitely make the most of this journey, because the definition of introvert is that you get your energy from other people, but definitely you can learn certain skills which might not necessarily give you, um, you know, uh, it might not be a hindrance in whatever career that you choose to do after the MBA, after the MBA curriculum, and the emphasis on the agile curriculum, how agile your curriculum should be, and how SRM also enables that door for whoever is getting into the course. So I really loved it, and so thank you for your time.
I thank you, Syed, and the Inside IM team for giving me this opportunity, and I thank all the participants who joined us today. Best wishes to all of you. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, folks, if you like this episode, please do let us in the comments below. If any questions were left unanswered, please do drop in the comments. We'll make sure that they get answered. And if you want to know more about SRM and the courses that they offer, there will be a link in the description and in the pinned comment, which will redirect you to the website. So please do check that out. Please do get in the admission team, in touch with the admission team. if you're interested to know more specific details regarding your profile or anything that you want to know. Meanwhile, this is Seth from Team Insight. I am signing off. Okay, thank you, sir.